Hello, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we will be focusing on college saving and estate planning for new parents. This presentation is brought to you by the California Society of CPAs. My name is Daryl Young, and I am a volunteer board member and the chair of the Financial Literacy Committee for the Peninsula Silicon Valley chapter of CalCPA. I operate a wealth management practice in the San Francisco Peninsula area. We intend for this presentation to be interesting and informative. The data points contained herein are believed to be current. However, please note that this presentation is intended to convey general information, which may not be applicable to your personal situation. Please do not interpret the information here as advice for your personal circumstances. Rather, you should consult with your personal advisor, or certainly feel free to give my office a call. As already mentioned, today we will be covering college saving and estate planning for new parents. And before we dive into the details, I'd like to emphasize something that we believe very strongly at our firm, and these four cornerstones of success, as outlined on the right, are planning in accordance with your goals and risk factors, giving back to your community, working with people whom you respect and trust, and maintaining a positive attitude and a competitive awareness at all times. So with this in mind, I'd like to emphasize that these are what we believe to be the cornerstones of financial success, and if you are achieving these actions, we think you're on your way. Let's dive into the cost of education in the context of college savings. Of course, it comes as no surprise to most parents, given the availability of information, that college costs these days are quite daunting. Looking at the information on the left, you see a collection of information representing various public and private universities on average. How about we focus on the University of California system, and in particular Berkeley, since that school happens to be in our geographic area. So looking at the bar charts on the right and focusing on the pale green columns in the center, again, the cost of a full year's education at a UC school, top-tier public institution, would run a family approximately $32,000 per year per child. Now, if we adjust those costs for inflation, and let's assume 7% for educational costs, such as tuition, and 3.5% for living costs, such as room and board, etc., you see that for a child who's born today and presumably goes to college 18 years from now, the cost, inflation adjusted, has escalated to nearly $80,000 per year. And again, quite a daunting task. So what should families do about this? Well, start saving early. Now, there are numerous vehicles through which a family can save. I think the most popular being college 529 plans. And let's go through some of those features right now. With respect to regulation, college 529 plans are either sponsored by states or state agencies. A nice feature is the control that the owner can exercise over the account. Oftentimes the owner is the parent. This is not, for example, an irrevocable financial gift to your child. There is a wide range of investments through which the account owner can diversify, and the options range from aggressive to conservative and hopefully would suit most investors. There's a lot of flexibility with respect to contributions. For example, you can front load up to $70,000 in the first year, or $140,000 for a married couple. And as footnoted there, you'll see that that number is based upon the $14,000 annual gifting limit as dictated by the IRS per donor per donee. So again, with respect to a college 529 plan, the owner or the parents may front load up to $140,000 in that first year. And last but not least, the assets in the college 529 plan grow tax-free when used for qualified higher educational expenses at an accredited institution. Qualified higher educational expenses would represent tuition, books and supplies, room and board, and an accredited institution would be defined by the United States Department of Education. So again, why are these 529s so popular? Well, in contrast to, for example, Coverdell educational savings accounts, where in this case you get the tax benefit, but you can front load the account with much higher dollars. Unlike UGMA or UTMA custodial accounts, these do not represent a permanent gift to your child. So again, College 529 plans for these benefits tend to be more popular than two options that I presented just now, and also tend to be more popular than just a normal investment account, which would be subject to taxation every year. Now, of course, these plans are based upon investments in securities, and so they have the potential for loss. However, a family that starts early, we would hope they would see a nice, healthy amount of growth over time. So now that we've covered college savings plans and the most popular option for most families, let's talk about the basics of estate planning for new families, new parents. What is an estate plan? Well, in very simple terms, I think of it as a legal document which represents your voice when you can no longer speak for yourself. And so it helps to ensure that your wishes and your intentions are carried out. When could it take effect? Well, do you have to be deceased? No, you could be incapacitated in some other way. You could be, for example, injured in a coma. You could be suffering some sort of mental illness which incapacitates you. So death is not necessarily a prerequisite for having your estate plan take effect. And so what would it cover? Well, in this case, let's talk about decisions concerning your health care. What might be provided to you when you're in that state of incapacitation, for example, in a hospital situation. How would your dependents, for example, your children, be cared for when you cannot care for them? What would happen to your financial assets? What would happen to your real estate assets? Who would pay your bills when you're not able to do these things? And with respect to a complete estate plan, perhaps it helps you also bypass the probate process and therefore keep your records outside of the court system. So with respect to estate planning, a typical document package would include these four things. Please note that these documents are typically prepared by attorneys, not accountants. However, your overall estate plan will be handled by your trusted advisors, which may include all of the above, attorneys, accountants, tax practitioners, etc. The will states your final wishes. The living trust, which goes hand in hand with the will, is a legal arrangement whereby assets are placed into a trust for the benefit of the trustee. Let's say that the trustee is you. It is there for your benefit during life, and then upon incapacitation and death, those assets will be transferred to your beneficiaries. Advanced Health Directive is a more specific document that speaks to how your health care will be handled and the decisions to be made for you when you can no longer make them. And Durable Power of Attorney speaks to how your assets can be handled with respect to real estate, financial assets, perhaps paying your bills, any number of things, enabling somebody to act on your behalf. Now, this sounds pretty complicated, and it is. How do we make the process more efficient? Well, I would say that the most important thing to do is to think through all the things that you want ahead of time. Because remember what I said earlier, this estate plan represents your voice when you can no longer speak for yourself, and you can be as detailed as you want to be. So with respect to identifying who is involved in your plan, yourself, your spouse, children, beneficiaries, siblings, parents, cousins, in-laws, you name it, charities. There could be any number of parties involved in your estate plan. Certain people may be designated to help you make decisions. Certain people may be designated to care for your children if you no longer can. How are the assets to be distributed, and whether or not there are any conditions attached to those distributions. So again, I want to emphasize that figuring all of this stuff out ahead of time really helps to make the process more efficient, particularly when it's not just you making these decisions, but, for example, also your spouse. With respect to having a meeting with an attorney, for example, to get started on your estate plan, again, I would emphasize you want to give some thought to these areas before you try to move forward. It would really help to make the process go much more smoothly. In respect to certain investments that may be related to your estate plan, let's talk briefly about life insurance. I think most of us have heard the term. We intuitively know what it is. Looking at the parties that may be involved in a life insurance arrangement, the owner, the person who owns the policy and is responsible for making those premium payments, the person who is insured, the person who is the quote-unquote trigger for the death benefit, say for example when that person passes away, and the beneficiaries who receive said death benefit upon the passing of the insured. Note that one person or one party can occupy more than one position on this triangle here. So for example, I might be the owner of an insurance policy, and I might also be the insured, and perhaps my son is the beneficiary. Now, some of these other investments, long-term disability, long-term care, and annuities, as the names indicate, long-term disability, of course, would help to provide coverage in the event that the breadwinner of the household is no longer able to work and therefore no longer able to produce income, or perhaps not at the same rate as before. Long-term care, perhaps needing care in retirement, and how would that be provided, in the sense that I think most of us realize long-term care, depending on the severity of the case, I mean, this could be somewhat expensive, and could also be lasting too, a couple years or more. Annuities, helping to protect against the risk that, for example, the owner lives a long time and runs the risk of outliving his or her assets. So again, we've covered the basics of college planning for new parents, the basics of estate planning, talked about some related investments. Really hope that you got what you wanted to get out of this, this webcast. We hope to see you at some of our future CalCPA events. Certainly feel free to give my office a call if you have any questions, and thank you again for your attention.